Welcome to the next video in our NOSS series. So, uh, with where we left, so um, we have installed routing and remote services here, and we have created a forest and made one of the servers as a domain controller, as well as we have added the client to the domain. So the next thing we want to do is add a child domain, which means we want to go to this L server and add a child domain. But the problem here is before going and adding this to a child domain, because this is the forest, this is the root, which is nitish.nos. And if I want to add this L server to, let's say, ld.nitish.nos, which means it has to first establish a communication between uh, this domain, which is nitish.nos, right? Which is at the moment no, because if we go to L server and power it on, uh, because we we establish connection between this network, we have a successful connection between this network. These two servers can ping, but they can't ping with this network. They can ping only within this network, because there's a third network, there's an external network, which means if I'm going to call in for nitish.nos, which is the domain controller here, which is based on 192.168.1.1, this is not going to reach it. This is not going to establish communication. So what we have to do is, before adding the child domain, we have to configure, or we have to establish a connectivity between the clients, between two different networks. In order to do that, we can do by creating a routing protocol. We can create a site-to-site VPN anyways, right? Your coursework doesn't request you to do a routing protocol. It doesn't ask you to do a routing protocol here. So you don't want to do a routing protocol, but without understanding routing protocol, if you try to implement VPN, it is not going to work, right? That's the reason why we started with routing protocols in one of our previous lectures. So what my plan is, so first we will do a routing protocol. We'll do a dynamic routing protocol. Possibly we will do RIP and establish communication between 192.168.2.1 network or 2.0 network to 192.168.1.0 network. Once they are successfully connected using a routing protocol, then we will add this server as a child domain, right? So now let's go to this L server and give the password. This is not in any of the domains. Sorry. I will also turn on my L client just to check the connectivity. My S client is on. My S server is on. So let's go to the command prompt. Oops. Cancel. Server manager is loading on. So let's go to ipconfig. Right, let's slowly introduce you to the PowerShell as well from this video. So there is a PowerShell option. So you just type PowerShell. So you can have a PowerShell, PowerShell ICE, right? It's an integrated environment. So we can use a PowerShell integrated environment to start with. Instead of doing IP configs like this, we can also use PowerShell. It's a PowerShell commands. It's a scripting, kind of makes things very easy. Instead of going and using a GUI, a GUI, we can use PowerShells to execute things. So for example, instead of getting an IP configuration, so let me go to this part, right? So you can just open PowerShell from the start option. So here instead of, oops, Yeah, here instead of getting the IP config done, so I can do it in different ways, like say get uh, it's control space. It's control space. You can get the commands. All right. Get. Yeah, here we go. It was taking a while. So you can use like the other networking interfaces. You can have help or support which you can refer to. So I'm going to, if I want to know what are the options I have, I can press the control and space. It will give me what are the options I have. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my IP address or IP configuration that suits me well. So double click it, and then I either run the full script here or I run the specific selection. So here I'm running the specific selection here, and it's going to get me the IP configuration. It will be more effective, more easier. If you start to practice it, it will give almost all the information. So here it goes. So Ethernet 0, which is 169.254, and then I have Ethernet 2, which is 192.168.16.2, and I have Ethernet 1, which is of no IP address. So I think Ethernet 0 and 1 are my internal networks. Let's also do another command here. Ipconfig, select selection. So my ipconfig here, yeah, it's not picking up the IP address. Let's go and check what's the problem. Oh, yeah, it's not picking the IP addresses here. Right, and see. Sorry. I think I have reset the server. Right. Let me rename it. It's LD external, and this one should be my LD internal, and this is my NAT network. So my external network should be in the properties. It's 10.0.0.10.0.0.2, 255.255.255.252. I don't have a gateway for this. I'm not giving any DNS for a moment now. Server list is empty. It's fine. I go to this properties, and I'm just going to give the IP address here. So it's going to be 192.168.2.1, and the default gateway is the same, so it's fine. I'm not giving any DNS for a moment here. I give OK. I close it. So now let's go to the PowerShell ipconfig. So here is my IP configuration, and here is my net config. So it says that I have my LD external, which is 10.0.0.2. I don't have a gateway. I have my Ethernet 2, which is my NAT network, and I have my internal, which is 192.168 2.1, right? So I can also look at my DNS. Maybe I can go here to this client previous video. I'm just referring to the previous video where we configured DNS. So I can go to command prompt. I can say ipconfig slash display my DNS. It says that there is no DNS to be displayed, right? Because we have just configured only the DNS. We have configured the conditional forward, right? Uh, we haven't configured anything else, right? Going back to the server here. So let's ping, okay, or let's do a test and then connection. So we will test the connection. So I'm going to test my connection to 192.168.1.1, which is my other part of the network. I'm going to select this and run it. And it says that the test connection, I'm getting bytes, but 1.2, it's failed. It's not connected because 1.2 is not connected because then we don't have interconnected interconnected networks established here. So this network can communicate to this network successfully. This PC can communicate to this server successfully, but this network 192.168.1.1 or 1.0 network can't communicate with 192.168.2.0 network, which means that if I want to add this as a child domain for this parent domain or a root domain, it can't be possible without establishing a successful connectivity between two networks. So what we are going to do now is we are going to configure a routing protocol, RIP, to establish successful connectivity in this video. So to do that, I go to tools. All right, let's see if we have the features. I go to tools. I have my remote and routing access, which means I have already installed the remote services. So I just go to tools, remote router and remote access. So I can see my server here. Click on the server. I have my network interfaces. I have my IPv4. So we are going to work on IPv4. So by default, you won't see this RIP here. So if I want to start from the first as fresh, I will disable this and I will start it again. It will give a go, a minute to wait. So yep, here we have everything reset. So let's go configure next. So I'm going to go for a custom configuration here because I'm going to do a routing protocol. So here I'm not going to do VPN now at this moment. I'm not doing NAT. So I just go to routing, which is LAN routing. Next, and I finish. It asks me to start a service. I start a service here. So here we go. We have network interfaces. All of our interfaces are listed here. We have an internal, we have external, and we have an Ethernet 2, which is a NAT network, which is not part of our topology. So we have IPv4 here. I click on IPv4. I can have general, I have static routes. If you want to configure a static routing, I can do that. But just for this case, because for other circumstances, we will also do static routing. But for now, we are going to look at a dynamic routing. So I click on IPv4, sorry, I click here. All right. Yeah, I click on general in IPv4 and I say I'm going to go for a new routing protocol. Click on the new routing protocol. Is it a relay agent or IGMP router protocol or RIP version 2? So I go for RIP version 2. It's routing information protocol. Like I said, static routing just does what we say. We have to specifically tell what is the destination address, which interface we want to go through, and all the details. Whereas dynamic routing, you just enable in a just tell that you are dynamic routing and this is your network, then it will automatically start communicating, advertising its details to the other connected networks, right? So we make it easier. So we go for a static dynamic routing, which is routing information protocol here. I just give OK. So now you could see that RIP is added in here. You can now add the interfaces to your RIP. Say that I have my external network. I want my external network to be connected to my routing information protocol. Right. Okay. And I want my internal network as well. These are the two networks which needs to be advertised to any of the other routing protocols, right? So I did this. It should be fine. If I go here, or if I go here to the PowerShell, and if I'm going to test the connection, oops, sorry, I think, right. If I'm going to test my connection, it still says that my test connection to the computer failed. The reason why it failed is I have configured RIP. I have configured routing information protocol in this server, which means this server is now RIP. Hey, I'm RIP, but it doesn't exchange any routes because I haven't done anything in this machine. So we have to go to this DC, go to tools, go to your remote routing and remote access. So there is nothing in here. So you have to configure and enable routing. So I just go next, custom configuration. I want a LAN routing. Just go finish it. Ask me to start the service. Here we go. And we have the services here. Go to IPv4 general, right click new routing protocol. I want RIP. I give OK. I go to my RIP, new interface. I want my external interface to communicate. Okay. I need my internal to go in. Okay. Here we go. So here, let's use command prompt. So ping 192.168.2.2, and we have a successful ping here. So we go to this server, and here we use PowerShell again and execute this command, And now you could see that it is successfully pinging, which means we have established connectivity between interconnected networks. We can double check that. Go to the London client here. No, yeah, and then let's see. Yeah, ping 192.168.2, sorry, 1.2. We get a successful ping. We go to this client, which is a Swansea client, and then we open a command prompt. It takes a bit to load. It's fine, but it's successful. So while it takes time to load, yeah, here we go. Command prompt, ipconfig, ping 192.168.2.2. Here we go. It's successful ping, which means now we have successfully established connectivity between this network and this network. So they both can talk to each other, which means we have established connectivity, which means we have installed routing and remote services. We have configured a routing protocol. In our case, we have configured a dynamic routing protocol. So this is done. So the next thing we have to do is add the client to the domain, which we will do it in, we have added the client to the domain as well. So the next thing which we have to do is adding the child domain, which means we are going to add L server to the child domain of SDC, and then we will add this client to this child domain. With that, we will be almost done with most of our work. We will do that in our next video, right?